Good afternoon, viewers. You must be slightly confused that how I am sitting here. Well, now we want to change certain kinds of presentations and also wants to know your views on our presentations and topics on EduSat network. Therefore, I have come to talk to you and also send a message that kindly send your views regarding these lectures, as well as also suggest if you want some kind of changes on this. This can be done either through our email addresses, or you can also send your these comments through chat and all that areas. You can also tell this kind of feedback on our phone, and we will be happy to receive your comments in writing also. Friends, as you know, we have already declared earlier, we are today going to talk on political science, and we have got a very eminent professor, Professor M.P. Jain, who was earlier working as a senior professor in Zakir Hussain College, Delhi University. He has authored several books, and presently his 2 books are already in the press. He is today going to talk to you and tell you on various issues related to modernism and modernity theories. Professor Jain is an eminent scholar in the political science area, and as I have told you, he is also one of the very renowned teacher in Delhi University. Therefore, we have called him, and I'm sure that through his lecture you will be benefited a lot, and later on you can interact with him through cell phone and through our net meetings. So now I'm overing it to Dr. Jain, and he will start his lecture. Dr. Jain, please.
Thank you, Dr. Mishra. Good afternoon, friends. In the last lecture, I had discussed about the medieval period and the advent of modernity, especially with reference to the views of Machiavelli and Hobbes. Today, we are going to discuss on modernism and the modernity theories. Advent of modernity has been a great event in the Eurocentric Western political, social and economic thought. Normally, Eurocentric Western thought is divided into 3 parts, namely ancient, medieval and modern. Ancient means Greek political theory and Roman political theory. Medieval means Christianity-based theories, and modern period starts from 16th century with the slogan of individualism, with the great movement of Reformation and Renaissance. What do we mean by modernity? It has been a very, very controversial topic in the Eurocentric socio-political theory and epistemology. It has been very much a debated topic. During the past 400 years, with the advent of modernity, which has passed through many phases, we have seen a great debate on the issue of modernism. So much so, during the past around 40 years, a new trend has come up. that is known as postmodernism, post-capitalism, post-industrialism and what not. So, theoretically speaking, modernity and modernism has been a much debated issue after the period of enlightenment in 18th century. There are different words used for modernity: modernism, modernity, modernization, though they have different meanings, but for our purpose here we won't make any distinction between them. What do we mean by modernism? Modernism means something which is post-medieval, that is after the medieval period, disassociation with the medieval period means modern. Secondly, it is post-traditional. Earlier the society was governed by the traditions which were not based on reason. They were historically carried forward to the generations and generations later on. No questioning. Conservatism as a philosophy today respects tradition and is traditional in nature. Third feature of modernism is capitalism. In 16th century a new wealth came. Navigation started, many things, developments took place, new lands were discovered like America, etc. New trade routes were discovered, a new class came into being, and this class had mobile wealth, a wealth which could be taken from this place to that place, that is capitalism. Along with this, the fourth feature of modernity is industrialization. It was not based on the agrarian society. Industrialization took place at the vast scale, and there was a great industrial revolution from 1760 to 1830 for 70 years. Industrial revolution meant introduction of machinery into the production process, which led to the division of the classes into workers and capitalists and all that. Another feature of modernity is secularization. It laid the foundation of a secular society. Everybody was free either to follow religion or not to follow religion. Religion was a matter of personal choice. On the basis of religion, nobody could compel you to go either to the church or to the temple or to the mosque. Secularization is a great, people say, progressive feature of the modern period, because it was able to free men from the bondage of religion. Then rationalization, faith in the universal reason. Everything must be based on the rationality of an individual. Rationality will be the guiding factor of the human life, of the society, of the state and everything. Reason will be supreme, nothing beyond reason. That was the call of enlightenment that we will see further. Scientific knowledge. Modernity knowledge is based on scientific observation. No myths, no ethos, no preconceived notions. Everything must be tested empirically in order to be believed. So, scientific knowledge became the important cornerstone of modernity. Then enlightenment. Enlightenment, which lasted from 1650 to 1800, was an important feature of modernity. Normally it is said that the second phase of classical modernity begins with enlightenment, because it was enlightenment which emphasized rationality in all the walks of human life and social life. So, another feature was universality of reason. Modernity maintained that reason is universal, whether it is West or it is the East or it is China, Japan, reason will be same. Now, this has been questioned. Universal concept of reason has been questioned by postmodernists and all those who believe in cultural relativism. Reason is not universal. Every society has its own norms, and those norms are historically evolved. So, this very concept of modernity, that reason is universal, is challenged in the later half of the 20th century by the cultural relativists, by multiculturalists, and by the postmodernists. So, again, modernity was based on meta theories. Meta theories means liberalism, Marxism, conservatism, idealism. Virtually it was an age of ideologies. Various ideologies were there, conflicting among themselves, and each ideology was giving a worldview, and that worldview was different from another ideology, and there were ideological debates during the whole phase of 400 years of the advent of modernity, and this debate is still going on in all the walks of life. Whether it is the social theory or the economic theory, different models have been worked out, and there is a conflict between the different models which is still going on. Again, modernism was based on individualism, a masterless individual, an individual who is free from nature, who is free from society, who is free from state, who is the master of himself as well as the universe. He can live the life of his own. He will live the life of based on his rationality. There will not be any control over that individual. On the basis of this individualism only, subject based rationality, different theories of modernity have evolved. Basic concern is individual. And another important feature of the modernity was the national sovereign state or the nation state. Modernity was very much against the localized system of feudalism. It was for a strong national sovereign state having the sovereign power over the subjects, and this power was unhindered, no hindrance to this power, no control of this power. This power has to be an absolute power over the individuals. Obviously, later on, they have developed the theories of democracy, they have developed the theories how to restrict the government, they have developed the theory of representative government and all, and that virtually led to the subjugation of state to the human being, a limited state. Because once you say that man is master of himself, you can't put him under the dictatorial state. Some kind of system had to be evolved whereby individual was to be given liberty. So, whole concept of rights, constitutional government, state and all that came up in the 18th, 19th and 20th centuries were centered around this nation state sovereignty on the one hand, and on the other hand the liberty of the individual. Now, how this modernism began? As I have said, the citadel of Christianity started cracking in 16th century itself. church became the most corrupt institution. It was backed by feudalism. An attack of feudalism and church was there on the monarchy. 30 Years' War led to the defeat of papacy in 15th and 16th centuries, and there emerged strong, powerful monarchies under, say, Queen Elizabeth, French monarch Louis XIV, then 15th and 16th, very strong monarchies emerged in the European world. And these European monarchies established a strong national sovereign state. The factors which led to the modernity or advent of modernity was decrease in the power of the God led to the increase in the power of the individuals. Because once you say that man is supreme, then obviously God becomes secondary. Church became secondary in comparison to the state, and in this way a new kind of individual emerged, self-confident, who has to think about himself only. And it was he only who has to think about himself, a selfish individual. And it was maintained that individual should be selfish because he should think about himself only. Another factor which led to the emergence of modernity was navigation, new trade routes, emergence of the class, etc., which I have discussed earlier. So, there were multiple factors which led to the emergence of modernity in the modern period and establishment of the nation state. The first political thinker who is called as modern, last medieval and first modern, is Machiavelli. Machiavelli laid down the foundation of the secular state. Deviating from the church state notion, he said that state is power and it should be based on power itself. He is the founder of real politics. He is said to be the first political modernist. After Machiavelli, there came Hobbes and many thinkers which we shall discuss under political modernism, the meaning of political modernism. Now, we shall discuss the phases of modernism. Normally, it is said that there are three phases of modernism or modernity. The early phase is from 16th century to 18th century, specifically from 1453 to 1789. The characteristic feature of this period was, as I have already discussed, two great movements, Reformation and Renaissance. Scientific theories of Newton, Copernicus, Galileo, Francis Bacon's interpretation of social theory and literature, strong political monarchs like Queen Elizabeth. So, this was the period when modern was trying to come out of the womb of the medieval. It was trying to establish itself in the socio-economic, political field, in literature, in culture, in art. Everywhere we found the advent of modernity during this period. It was in a way negation of the medievalism. A new kind of thinking was emerging, and this new thinking did not know where to go and what to do. It all was the earliest phase. Most important political thinkers during this phase were social contract philosophers, Hobbes, Locke, and to some extent Rousseau. Most important political event during this period were the English Revolution of 1649, the American Revolution of 1776 and the French Revolution of 1789. These were the great political events. With French Revolution, it is said that the early phase of modernity ended and a new phase of classical modernity began. Classical modernity is the most important phase of modernity or modernism. I am using modernity and modernism interchangeably, though there is some difference between these two, but I am using these words interchangeably. So, the second phase, known as the classical phase of modernity, which lasted up to end of the 19th century or beginning of the 20th century, is the most important phase. The most important philosopher of this phase is Immanuel Kant. In 1784, he wrote an article named as "What is Enlightenment?" and he laid down the cardinal principles of enlightenment in the form of a free individual, thinking individual, an individual who has come from the shadows into an open as a thinking, rational being, and who will think about himself and the society around. So, the second phase of modernity is known as classical phase of modernity, which was started from 1789 and which virtually ended in the beginning of the 20th century, and the most important cardinal principle of this was enlightenment. And the political philosophy which guided this phase was liberalism mainly. Though during this phase, which is also known as the age of ideologies, the second phase, various ideologies emerged in the European world. In the last decade of 18th century, conservatism, supported by Edmund Burke, emphasized the role of tradition and was in a way trying to negate the modernity. In the first quarter of the 19th century, Hegelian idealism emerged, and this in a way tried to revive the ancient philosophical notions of Plato and Aristotle, though in a different way and different language and with different emphasis. In the 19th century again, there emerged Marxian philosophy, which was in a way quite opposite to the liberal philosophy. In the 19th century again, we found the emergence of socialism. Utopian socialists were there. And in the 19th century, we found Nietzsche, Schopenhauer, and their philosophy of irrationalism, which was complete negation of the principles of enlightenment, or we normally call it enlightenment project. Irrationalism was based on the principle of power, on the principle of will, on the principle of force and all that, which ultimately gave birth to fascism in 20th century. So, in 19th century, its classical liberalism phase, classical modernity phase, we found various ideological developments in the Eurocentric Western world. The third phase is the 20th century phase. Here is in 20th century we had many developments. The most important development at the level of theory was the rise of feministic principles, the call of gender equality, the call of racial equality, and emergence of post-colonial states. 20th century has witnessed great upheavals, 2 world wars, and thereafter this end of colonialism virtually from the whole world. Colonial powers are out. A new kind of world order is coming up. And post-colonial state, which were earlier known as third world, not now of course, because they have got some kind of respectability, financial stability, and some kind of say in the world affair, they emerged. So in the 20th century, we found a new kind of phase of modernity, and it was said that there is no single modernity. Modernity must be associated with cultural relativism. Every society has got a different norm of modernity. Western concept of modernity cannot be adopted or cannot be borrowed by other cultures, as we shall see in the theory of Taylor. Taylor said that there is one cultural modernity and there is one acultural modernity. So 20th century, especially the later half of the 20th century, has refused to accept that West is the Makkah Medina of social theory or philosophy or political theory. Equally important are the cultures of East. Comparative political theory is emerging as an important subject. And apart from liberalism, communitarianism, which has been a basic theme in the known Western cultures, is being given proper attention. So 3 phases of modernity: early modernity up to say 18th century, classical modernity from the last decade of 19th century to the end of the 19th century or the beginning of the 20th century, and the late modernity, that is the modernity which is going on. Now it is said that after 1870 we have entered into a new phase, and this new phase is known as the post-modernity phase. Now we have entered into a society or social phase which is post-capitalist phase, post-industrial phase, post-structural phase, and post-modern phase. There is a lot of controversy as to whether we are in the post-modern phase or still modernity is going on. Thinkers and writers like Anthony Giddens have said that this is continuation of modernity, of course, in a different way. They call it high modernity. Anthony Giddens has said that it is high modernity, whereas another writer, very important writer, Bauman, a critical theory writer, he has said that this is a liquid modernity. High modernity, liquid modernity, Giddens high modernity, and Bauman it is liquid modernity. So this is how we define the different phases of modernism. Now political modernism. What is the meaning of political modernism? As I have said, Machiavelli and Hobbes started this. Hobbes used the scientific method in the analysis of the political phenomena. He scientifically analyzed the origin of state, nature of state, origin of sovereignty and all that. He laid down the foundations of the secular national sovereign state. Though his state was absolutist, but he is still regarded as an individualist because the cornerstone of his state was man, an individual, a free individual who through a social contract established the state. In this way, he laid down the foundation of the democratic idea that state is man-made institution. He brought down the state from the domain of God, divine theory of the origin of the state, to the man-made state concept. After Hobbes, Locke and Rousseau, they gave birth to political modernism. Political modernism later on developed faster in 18th century in the form of representative government. Various institutional setups were created and the mechanism of democracy was there. Liberalism took root, and ultimately in the 21st century what we see is a democratic polity. Democratic polity is the symbol of modernization. All the theories of modernization are based on the institutional aspect of democracy and the procedural democracy. If a country is democratic and has developed the democratic institution like free and fair voting, two political party system, freedom of speech and expression, Bill of Rights, then it is a modern political system, otherwise not. So, in this way political modernism emerged in the writings of social contract theoreticians and all the writers of 19th and 20th century democratic writers laid down the foundations of various political institutions. Now, we shall take the classical theory of enlightenment. What is the basic thrust of it? As I said, it began with enlightenment. The essence of classical theory was individual autonomy. Individual autonomy from his surroundings, from natural as well as supernatural entities, from fellow beings and from all the structures of the society. All the external authorities shall not control, none of the external authorities shall control the individual. He is not bound by tradition, he is not bound by customs, he has to create his own norms. No norm will be binding on him, he is not a normative being. All the values or law will not be binding on him. He will create his own law, he will create his own value. Classical modernity took a subjective view of man. Man is the ultimate, his rationality is ultimate. No other rationality will work, and each man will be guided by his own individual rationality. Virtually, it was there to create an anarchic society. because every society must have certain norms. So, the classical theory of modernity gave birth to negative liberalism. It was supported by thinkers like Adam Smith, Bentham, and to some extent Mill. They gave the theory of hedonism, that a modern man is one who comes to this world to have pleasures and pleasures only. Pleasure is the object of human life. In the 21st century, that has been translated into another kind of thing, consumer society. Man has become consumer. In order to drive all kind of pleasures, he must be given complete freedom to consume all the goods, consume all the kind of family relationship. He is a master consumer. This concept of master consumer, which 21st century modernity has taken of a modern man, is almost equal to or almost same as that of the classical modernity. So, classical modernity, which lasted up to the last of the 18th century, 19th century, 1900 rather, or the beginning of the 20th century, was characterized by the negative liberal political philosophy. As against this very classical modernity, there emerged Hegelian idealism, Marxian theory of class struggle, and the positive liberal principles of T.H. Green and J.S. Mill. And classical modernity has revived now again. In this age of information technology revolution, it is the revival of classical modernity on the one hand and attack on this modernity by postmodernists on the other hand. So, today's period is characterized by these two kinds of forces. On the one hand, reinforcement of the classical modernity, and on the other hand, the attack of postmodernists on this classical modernity. Now, we should take up the critical theory of modernity. Jürgen Habermas, born 1929, is an important writer on modernity. He has given the concept of communicative rationality. Though he is a supporter of modernity and its norms against postmodernity, but he has challenged the classical concept of modernity by saying that rationality is not the ultimate. Subject based rationality is not the right kind of social thinking. He has raised doubts about the epistemological character of this kind of subject based rationality. So, he has in a way rejected subjective rationality. It must have a social base. Again, he has raised the question of alienation with regard to modernity. Modernity has given birth classical modernity I mean to say, has given birth to an alienated human being, an atomized human being, which in the language of Durkheim was prone to commit suicide. Man is a social being, not alienated, atomized, alone living being. So, Habermas in the Marxist tradition has objected to the creation of alienated beings by the classical modernity. Thirdly, going with linguistic philosopher Wittgenstein, he has said that language is a very important factor in the modern period, because communication is done by language. So, following Wittgenstein, recognizing the contribution of Wittgenstein, Habermas has given the concept of communicative rationality, and against postmodernists, as I have said, he has defended modernity or the meta theories or the universal reason, but with reservations. So, he is both a defender of modernity against postmodernists on the one hand, and on the other hand he has criticized the classical concept of modernity. There is another thinker known as Taylor, Charles Taylor. Charles Taylor is a famous, well-renowned communitarian, along with McIntyre and Sandel. Communitarianism is a new trend in the Eurocentric political theory. Normally, it is said that communitarianism has been adopted from the non-Western cultures, which are inspired by communitarian thinking. So, Charles Taylor, as a communitarian, has attacked the concept of classical modernity. He says there are multiple modernities. Every society has its norms. There cannot be a normless society. Individuals do not create norms. They are bound by the norms of the community. In between individual and community is the community which is more important, and community should be taken care of. The concept of alienated individual is socially not viable as per communitarians. No man is all alone. They live a life in the community, with the community, for the community, not for the self. So, the very concept of selfish, atomized individuals is not acceptable to communitarians. Moreover, Charles Taylor has said that in the post-colonial world, Eurocentric Western concept of modernization or modernity will not work, because you will have to take into consideration the comparative concepts of modernities. There is a debate in India that India cannot adopt the Western norms of modernity as it is. Indians will have to evolve their own concept of modernity. The joint family norms in India, for example. On the other hand, there is nucleus family norms in Western world. Which one is better? One can very well say. Which one is better? One can make out. So, Indian or Chinese or say Japanese or say Southeast Asian cultures, they have their own norms and their own concepts of modernity. They can't blindly follow the concept of modernity of the Western world. It is not a Eurocentric concept. Culture-based modernity should be there. So, cultural relativism has to be there with regard to the concept of modernity. Charles Taylor has emphasized it. Along with Charles Taylor, his other associates, McIntyre and Sandel, all the communitarians have mentioned it. Charles Taylor has said that there are two theories of modernity. One is cultural theory, another is a cultural theory. Cultural theory is applicable to the Western world, whereas a cultural theory or culturally neutral theory is applicable to the non-Western world according to him. And there are multiple modernities rather than a single one. So, with regard to modernity and other things, there are different theories, different views and different confusion. Now, we shall have a brief discussion of postmodernism. Postmodernism requires a separate lecture, but the main criticism of postmodernism of modernity is that it is based on universal reason. There is nothing like universal reason. There is nothing like meta narratives. There are nothing like grand theories. Everything is cultural based and culturally relative. Postmodernism is taking up the cause of feminism and other. They are concerned with gender. There is a widespread feministic attack on modernity. Rita, there is a writer known as Rita Felicon. She has written a book, The Gender of Modernity, published in the year 1999. She clearly says that the whole concept of Western modernity has been male chauvinistic, masculine. If they said rationality, that rationality was for male. Social division of the society was absolutely irrational. It was not rational. The divide of public and private was absolutely unacceptable. Women have been kept as non-member of the society and non-subjects. So, in the 20th century, we have seen revival of gender issues with regard to modernity, and the whole concern of feminism is based on gender equality. Similarly, subaltern groups, similarly gays, lesbians, these marginalized people, they are not covered by the modernity concept. Postmodernism is fighting for all these. With this, I just give the finishing touch to the lecture and invite questions from the friends.
Okay, you talked about the Taylor theory of modernity, cultural and acultural. So, in recent scenario, that was a kind when industrialization or the capitalism was coming up, and that was giving a shape to the society of the time. But now, when we see the different kind of society and different different factor, different elements giving shape to the society. So, do you still think that Taylor theory of modernity, theory of modernity, is still valid? It needs to be revisiting.
You see, the question is that if there are different type of societies and cultures, how can we have one criteria or one norm of modernity? You see, as I said, the whole concept of modernity, modernization, modern period has been Eurocentric so far. It is only during the past 50 years that there is revival in the interest towards the non-Western cultures. Comparative political theory is emerging as a subject, and now the monopoly of the West on intellectualism, on thinking, is no more acceptable now. The Western norms of modernization are industrialization. It means Gandhi is ruled out. Their norms of modernization are, or modernity, are urbanization. It means rural economy are ruled out. Their norm of modernization are individualism. It means community life is non-modernized. If a man is living in the joint family, he is not modern. For them, consumer is modern, or a half-naked fakir like Mahatma Gandhi is not modern. We in India are very much guided by the Western concepts. And right now in this country, the debate should be that Western standards of morality will not work here. Modernity will not work here. We have to evolve our own standards of modernity, because modernity is concerned with development, disassociation with the past. But which past? Which values of the past? Agreed that we will, if we are interested in Dahej, we are not modern. If we are interested in caste, we are not modern. These things we must, in order to be modern, we have to disassociate ourselves from something of the past which is undemocratic.
Okay.
We have to disassociate ourselves from Sati. That's why the first modern thinker was Raja Ram Mohan Roy. But we can't adopt all the standards of, all the norms of the Western modernity, because our culture, our society, our concept of good and bad is different from the European or Eurocentric world. It is a clash of civilizations. That's why there will be a clash of modernities also. What will be modern for them may not be modern for us. That's why there is a very rational demand in the Indian context now that we should not follow the West in the blind manner. Blind following of the West will not make us modern.
Okay.
Less you consume, better you are in a country like India. More you consume, better you are in the Western world. Because your identity is consumption. Identity in India is not consumption. So that's why multiple modernities is the concept which is normally propagated by people like Taylor.
Okay. You have rightly pointed out the identity on the basis of consumption, and one of the thinker, Frankfurt scholar Adorno, he said the media sets the culture and media is determining society and other things. So he talked about a culture which media wants, and media wants means certain people who are controlling the media. So this in this century, 21st century, how you see, how you explain the Western world and Indian worlds, because the concept of boundary is now no more now. So in this case, do you see that a culture which will emerge in coming days will be a singular culture? You want what we find the diversity of the culture in India, that will not remain in place.
You see, with regard to media and modernity, what is the role of media in modernity in a mass society? Right now, whether it is Eastern world or Western world, we are having mass societies. In mass societies, media plays a guiding role, because my media only highlights the issues media forms the public opinion and everything. It may be responsible, it may be irresponsible. But with regard to modernity, the role of media is very much restricted. Media is used to advertise the products, advertise the ideas, advertise the religion. If you want to see any Dharam Guru, if you want to become a popular Dharam Guru, he will have to take the help of the media and he will become the Dharam Guru. In the Indian context, say, Indian culture has always emphasized on yoga. Now, role of media in propagating yoga by the first class yoga acharyas or third class yoga acharyas, you can see that is there. So, media plays a great role nowadays, but it has nothing much to do with modernity. It has to do with mass society and the culture of the mass society.
Okay.
Because they are guided by the reason of others, not their own. So that is there.
But there is no relationship here. A study has not been conducted in relation with both
Study with regard to this.
media and modernity.
No, with regard to media, I think there may be some studies, but since I don't have much knowledge of the mass communication
Okay.
in the country,
Okay.
I may not be able to say, throw complete light on that. But in modernizing, media, not only in modernizing everything, even the revival of religion, media is playing a role. Revival of, as I said, yoga. Again, if media will start propagating the joint family will, people will go in for joint family and all that.
So, well friends, with these words we conclude the lecture. I thank all of you for watching the lecture, and on your behalf I thank Dr. M.P. Jain for giving such an insightful lecture on the topic modernity and modernity theories. Thank you very much.